This is Real Estate This Week with Stephen Gasque. 17 years on air and online, helping you succeed in buying, selling, and investing in property. The best real estate strategies out there, just for you.
Welcome to Real Estate This Week. Hi again, I'm Stephen Gasque, and I'm so glad you're here as we look at international investing. Not just buying a house overseas or across the border, but buying properties that will generate a return on your investment. How on earth can you do that? Well, by working with a professional who guides clients through international investing all the time. Joining us now is Theresa Croak Mueller, CEO of Trillium, the commercial, residential, and international real estate brokerage in the Chicago area. Theresa has also earned the highly regarded CCIM designation, the Certified Commercial Investment Member by the CCIM Institute. Theresa, welcome to Real Estate This Week.
Thank you, Stephen. Thank you for having me. I appreciate the opportunity.
I am so glad you are here, especially because we're talking about some graduate-level real estate, international investing. So, Theresa, let's start at the very beginning. Who is buying real estate in another country, whether we're talking about a home or an investment property?
Well, that is a good question. If you happen to read Wall Street Journal recently, they just talked about how more than any time since the Great Depression have we seen more Americans going to other countries. And people's reasons are very different, right? So it could be, I'm just looking for a different lifestyle, or I have family there, or I need healthcare. Healthcare is a big one, right? It's very, very expensive in the US, and you can go to lots of other countries and have much more affordable healthcare and cost of living. So there's lots of different reasons from a home standpoint. Now, of course, I'm commercial real estate. So if you ask me who buys outside of the US, it's someone who's looking for a return, right? So that they might be multifaceted in their portfolio and have hotels, resorts, et cetera, outside the country. So yeah, it depends on who the buyer is and their motive.
That is so interesting. And so I know that the rules are different in most foreign countries. In some countries, you actually own the property you buy. In others, you can't because you're not from that country. And you have to lease it for 100 years. So
that's right.
When that happens, how do you guide someone towards the right country for what they want to do?
That is a very good question as well. So when anyone is seeking investment outside the U.S., I have a list of questions. What is their motive? What is their investment return expectations, et cetera? And then when you narrow down the countries that they would be interested in investing in, whether it be for their own personal residence or for their portfolio, then I am always partnering with another broker or expert in that country. Because I'm not going to be an expert in every single country and every single law and how to get in these ins and outs. I will assist them in finding who that right person is, because I'm very well connected internationally all over the world. All the major countries where Americans are investing, I am connected in those countries so that I can help them, not as a hand-holding, here, let me show you, the steps, appraisal, et cetera, blah, blah, blah. I am helping them work with the right professional for what they're seeking.
Theresa, I have done so many shows on investing, but typically my investment shows are either about residential or commercial or retail or industrial. I have never done a show about investing internationally. And so tell me, is that really a big part of real estate?
Oh, yes, of course. So certainly if you talk to most Americans and from an investment portfolio, most are not investing outside the US. in part because we have a very large country. They understand the laws. They know how to do a 1031. They figure there's enough options here. So most are not investing outside the US, and that's probably why we're not doing too many shows. However, there is a handful of people who are saying, okay, it makes sense for my portfolio to include assets outside of the US. And I will say in general, I don't want to pinpoint any demographics, but I will say it's typically someone from outside the US that now lives in the US that are more open to buying assets outside of the US.
I see. I see. And I guess it depends on the type of business you run if you want to invest internationally. I mean, I can see hospitality like hotels, restaurants. Yes. I can see things like storage, manufacturing plants, AI, the massive warehouses. What else attracts an American who wants to invest overseas?
So you hit the nail on the head. Exactly. Resorts and hotels. Certainly you have owner/operators that have investments throughout the world and all hospitality sectors. Industrial, obviously, is a big one for supply chain when you're trying to get product everywhere in the world. Office, maybe a little less so. I mean, if that's your asset portfolio class, then you may seek office outside of the US. Multifamily, again, that is a little less so. You might seek it outside the US, but not as much as if you're primarily investing in the US. It's what you know and do there. So you hit it. Land, if you're a developer, you may seek outside of the US to develop the same type of projects that you have here, whatever they are in nature, whether it be industrial or hotel, et cetera. So yeah, I mean, that's depending on your asset class and your portfolio objectives, that's when you would seek elsewhere outside of the US.
And so say that I do own a small chain of hotels and I want to go international. How do I find out what country is the best bet?
Well, it depends, again, on your investment portfolio objectives. How much money do you have? Are you looking to buy up an entire large portfolio, or is it just a few smaller resorts that you're looking for? So it really depends on your portfolio objectives and, how much funding that you have. So it's a really long list of questions that I would be asking. Whatever they're seeking, I have the connection.
Interesting. And Theresa, in most cases, are they buying existing properties, brick and mortar, or are they buying open land and starting from scratch?
Generally not as much open land, although I am involved in a transaction where it is land for development. But generally, it will either be turnkey or something that's in development, or it could just be investing in the project. So a lot of times, it's not them just looking to buy the real estate outright. They might be JVing, where they say, okay, we're going to partner in this. We're going to invest because we're expecting a return. So they're not just going and buying huge tracts of land and starting up a hotel development. That's not as typical for an investor from the US. Doesn't mean that it can't happen, but it's generally partnering or buying existing, as you call, brick and mortar.
I see. And that kind of answers my next question. I was going to ask you whether if a piece of land or a property comes up for sale, is there a mad rush for it, like there would be in the United States? Is there a lot of competition, or can you just kind of chill out?
You mean bidding war situation?
Right.
Again, this is the price point, geography, what is the return? So depends on the variables of that property. Obviously the higher the price point, the less likely that you're going to have any kind of bidding war.
I see. That's true in the United States too, of course, with luxury properties. Okay, so Theresa, say that I find a hotel for sale in Europe and I want to buy it. First question, can I get a mortgage? Or do I have to pay all cash if I buy in another country?
Well, I probably wouldn't call it a mortgage. I would call it funding. And the answer to that is, one, what are the metrics? And two, how well established are you in the field? So if someone just off the street said, I want to go buy a hotel, even if it has a good return, if you don't have the experience and or connections, you're probably not going to get the funding. If you have a long history, even if you've never invested in Europe, but you have a long history of investing in the US and can get capital here, then you have a much higher likelihood of finding the funding that you need for your project elsewhere.
I see. And would I ever get a mortgage in the United States for a property in Europe?
I wouldn't call it a mortgage, but I would call it funding. And yes, you can ask for partners here or you can ask for partners there. So the funding potentially could come from anywhere. Again, this depends on the country too. So you might already have to have the funds in the country. So there's more logistical details around funding depending on where you're purchasing.
Say that I get the hotel in Europe and I now own it and it has a nice return. Will I see appreciating values in the same way I would in the United States? Or is it a much slower hill or a much faster hill?
I feel like every answer is going to be depends. I do want to say that most of the clients that I work with that are looking to purchase, whether it be here in the US or abroad, they're always looking for some kind of value add or development potential. So they're not expecting to say, oh, I'm going to buy this hotel, turn over the keys, and I'm going to get my 4% or 5% return and just walk away. They're hoping that there is some other additional potential to increase their investment return. And so by value add options, it might be taking a lesser named hotel and moving it up the food chain where you, change the whatever flag it has, where it is, whether it be a Hilton or a Marriott, et cetera. Try to move it up the food chain. That could be one by renovating rooms, adding amenities, et cetera. So the answer is always it depends. Very rarely am I seeing someone going to buy something where there's no additional potential for them to increase the revenue or the sale price later on. It's not just as easy as will it appreciate more in one location or another. There are other variables that are involved.
Great information. And Theresa, now let's shift gears from buying commercial investment property in another country to one of your other specialties, investing in resort properties. Tell us about that.
Are you interested in a resort in St. Lucia or somewhere else in the Caribbean? Because I've got some properties.
Absolutely. Tell me about them.
So I recently was just at one of the resorts that I'm selling, and this is a little bit more obscure one, but kind of a fun one that most of your listeners could actually afford. Because a lot of times when I say, oh, are you interested in buying a resort in the Caribbean? That just sounds pie in the sky for so many people. And I explained to them, this is actually more affordable than you would believe. So this particular resort that I'm selling, and this is an entry price point, it has 10 bungalows, plus there's a beautiful house next door, and it has excellent return. You make a ton of money, and the current owners are working there 7 to 8 months of the year, and then they take the rest of the year off, and they let their employees take off, and then they travel because they've made enough money in those months. And so this particular case, it was on Little Corn Island. Do you know where Little Corn Island is?
I wish I did, but I don't.
Well, it's tropical paradise just east of Nicaragua. And so I did some of the videos, et cetera, and I put them on Instagram and LinkedIn and all the social media, whatever the social media is today, I'm wherever that has to be. And the price point for 10 bungalows, which there is development value add. We talked about this as a potential because there's additional acreage that you could develop more and make more money. This is at the price of $3.2 million. And you say, well, I don't have $3.2 million. Well, I'm not expecting you to pull all the cash out of your pockets and say, okay, well, here's $3.2 million, because you're going to find financing just like when you would buy a house or anything else. So you would get financing, which there is some seller financing. I'm also have banks that I could recommend that you get financing, or even other lenders. And whether you decide to go down there and live in paradise yourself and make a ton of money and manage the property, or you hire someone to manage, it is doable. It is doable for many Americans to go into the price point of 3 million because you're not producing all the money yourself. You are finding financing to make it happen. And the resort is already giving a return that someone is going to be willing to finance this property.
Now, this sounds like such a dream.
Mhm.
Can that dream really come true for someone who's of normal means, or do I have to be a super millionaire to do something like that?
Yes, the people who own these resorts, they were everyday people from the US. So the owners are from the US, and they made it happen for themselves. You can too. It's just being able to think creatively. And I'm going to extend this to all real estate. You need to think creatively. You can't just say, oh, I'm going to go buy a property. Here's a mortgage. I need to put 20 to 30% down. There are different ways than just the conventional method. You could say, you know what? Hey, are you willing to take my house in Florida or my industrial property in Illinois or whatever? You could start throwing in trades. It's not just about bringing cash to the table or lending. There are different ways to make real estate transactions happen. There are a lot of different things we should discuss before obviously you jump into it. I mean, if you want to hand me your wallet, by all means, I'll help you. But let's ask the right questions. Do you have the grit to do this? Do you have the, not just the grit and energy? Do you have the ability to travel, etc.? And it could be one of several ways. You could go move there and be an owner operator, oversee everything, because obviously you'd save in management fees if you're operating it yourself. Or you can hire a management team. Now, obviously that cuts into what you are going to profit from the property. But if you say, you know what, I'm more of a hands off, I'm just an investor, that's a possibility. Now, it might be a little bit more difficult for a small place such as Little Corn Island, but it's very doable for larger resorts, such as the one I suggest in St. Lucia or some of the other properties that I represent. So the answer is always it depends. Let's have a conversation about what your needs and wants are and how you can make it happen.
Oh, that's wonderful. And for people who do buy resort properties in the Caribbean, do they tend to keep them to themselves, or do they market them through places like Airbnb or VRBO or that sort of thing?
Yes. So the answer is yes to all of the above, because every resort is going to make a choice in how they will market their properties, whether it be through the venues that you offered. They could just have their own site and it winds up being word of mouth after time. So, or they could hook up with a chain if that's available to them. So every resort is going to be different in how they market to prospective, prospective residents, whether they're going to stay there long term or short stays. It could be a VRBO, it could be an Airbnb, it could be through any of the booking.com. So you have multiple avenues. Also, depending on which avenue is you, that takes a cut into your profit. So you have to analyze, which way am I going to market when I am the owner of the resort, such that it will maximize the potential of this place. So it might be, you could increase your occupancy by going through different sources, but you might not get as much profit up front. So say you have to pay a 30% fee, but then you're more occupied, it will come out in a wash. So there's lots of different metrics and different ways of playing the game. There's not just one way of, it's through VRBO, Airbnb, booking.com, or it could be going through the Hilton or Marriott chain, depending on the size and location. And I just gave those two examples. There's plenty of different flags that you can work with to help capitalize on the potential of your resort.
Well, Theresa, I know I've asked you a lot of what if questions and how does it work questions, but let me leave you with one more big one. So if I or one of our listeners did this and we bought a resort in the Caribbean.
Through me. Because then we're going together.
Of course, through you. And then I wake up in the morning realizing that every one of the bungalows is rented, and I have a nice, beautiful, healthy breakfast outside. And then could I possibly spend the rest of the day out fishing all day long?
Is that what you want to do? Fish?
Oh, yes.
Oh, then you're my next buyer. Oh, and I thought that myself when I just went to this last resort. When you go there and be in tropical paradise, the world is your oyster. Do you want to scuba? Do you want to snorkel? Do you want to hike around? Do you want to fish? On some places, do you want to golf? Do you just want to read a book by the beach every day? When you're investing somewhere, that would be in the list of questions. What do you want to enjoy life? Is it fishing? What is it? Because that will also help drive your investment potential and where you would go.
Oh, that is wonderful. Well, Theresa, I really want to thank you for telling us all about international investing, from commercial properties up in Europe to resorts in the Caribbean, a fascinating side of real estate. And I appreciate you showing us how to make it happen. Thank you, Theresa.
Thank you, Stephen. I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you so much.
You are very welcome. Theresa Croak Mueller, CEO of Trillium, the commercial, residential, and international real estate brokerage in the Chicago area. Theresa has also earned the highly regarded CCIM designation, the Certified Commercial Investment Member by the CCIM Institute. Next time on Real Estate This Week, curb appeal. If you're selling your house in the spring market, a national expert will help your place shine. So the buyers line up. Curb appeal is next, right here on Real Estate This Week. And until then, I'm Stephen Gasque, and thank you for listening.
A brand new episode of Real Estate This Week with Stephen Gasque drops every Thursday, everywhere. And you're invited to listen, subscribe, and follow us. Just look for Real Estate This Week with Stephen Gasque. The best real estate strategies out there, just for you.